Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. Our cover story tonight comes from China. If there is one thing the country hates, it's dissent. It has zero tolerance for protests, which is why every time they happen there, it is a big deal. Protests at China's iPhone plant have been dominating headlines for the last 24 hours. We told you about this yesterday on the show as well. China also has zero tolerance for COVID-19. In fact, it likes to make the world believe its zero COVID policy is a success story. But the reality on the ground is far from that. A record spike in COVID-19 cases in China has brought back the 2020 fears. Are we looking at a repeat of the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic? That is our top focus tonight. Also on the show for you, the world is talking about the Russia-Ukraine war, focusing on it for the last 9 months. But what about the war against cyber terror? A cyber attack at the European Parliament makes us ask, are we already in the middle of a cyber war? What is the world doing about it? Is that enough? We discuss. Pakistan has a new army chief. We tell you about the twists and turns over that appointment and what his appointment means for India. The Qatar World Cup is becoming the center stage for politics and protests. We tell you how the West is playing a game of convenience and winning the match of hypocrisy. Guess who wants to buy Manchester United? David Beckham. And he is not the only sports star to walk down that path. What really is behind this trend? Where is the money coming from? We tell you. There is some scary news coming in from China. The country is reporting a record number of COVID-19 cases. By record, I mean the highest since the start of the pandemic. Like I said, it's scary. And it comes with global implications. On Wednesday, China reported 31,444 locally transmitted cases. The previous record was 29,317, which was recorded in April this year. As I speak, numerous Chinese cities are reporting outbreaks. Guangzhou, Chongqing, Chengdu, Jinan, Beijing, Lanzhou. In fact, the capital city has come to a standstill. Parks have been closed, museums have been shut. Shanghai has also tightened the COVID-19 restrictions. Those coming into the city are not allowed to visit the shopping malls or the restaurants within 5 days of arrival. In many other cities, shops, restaurants, schools have been closed. China has 31 province-level regions and nearly all of them are reporting fresh cases. Is this a new wave? What else explains the resurgence of infections? That too nearly 3 years after the pandemic emerged in China. Our next question, what is China doing about this? These growing numbers. Well, cities across China have imposed localized lockdowns. There is mass testing. Makeshift hospitals are being built, just like they were in Wuhan in 2020. China maintains its zero tolerance to COVID-19. It is sticking to the zero COVID strategy. After all, it is the signature policy of the Chinese President Xi Jinping. But here's a question. Is the zero COVID policy even working? China, for that matter, has been pushing its mega cities into lockdowns that have gone on for months now. In January this year, people living in the city of Xi'an were forced out of their homes at midnight and moved to quarantine facilities. By April, Shanghai was closed for 2 long months. 25 million residents had to stay at home. China had initially said the lockdown would only last 2 weeks. Now, listen to what happened earlier this week. A French expat found herself locked down in her boyfriend's apartment in Beijing. One of his neighbors tested positive, so the entire building was locked down. The woman told a news agency, every time we go to sleep, we are not sure whether the next morning we will be trapped in our own apartment. This is what Beijing looks like right now. It's a cauldron of dread and fatigue. The people of China have not stepped out of the country since the outbreak in Wuhan. As I speak, the borders are all but shut. There are incessant lockdowns, quarantines. Despite all the gung-ho, the outbreaks continue, as do the COVID-19 deaths. Beijing, for example, recorded another COVID-19 death on Wednesday itself. It is the 4th since the weekend. And as for the infections, it is recording 1,000 plus daily. On Wednesday, the figure stood at 1,648. So, will one be wrong in saying that China's zero COVID policy has failed? Think about it. The numbers for sure are pointing at that direction. The people are also frustrated. Beijing residents say there is a delay in getting essentials like groceries delivered because of the sheer volume of the orders. Some say they know people who have exhausted all their savings because of being forced to stay at home. As I speak, spas, salons, other non-essential services remain closed. Factories are operating in closed-loop system, with the workers being asked to stay on site. But the arrangement is not really working. Yesterday, we told you what's happening in China's biggest iPhone factory. Protests have erupted. Workers are confronting the police and the local authorities. These workers say they are being forced to share dormitories with COVID-positive colleagues. It's an allegation that iPhone supplier Foxconn denies. Foxconn is now reportedly paying the workers $1,100 to resign immediately. An additional $300 will be given to the workers who board a bus to their hometown. Foxconn reportedly also issued a notice that reads, I'm quoting, some employees are still concerned about the coronavirus and hope to quit and return home. Adding, it deeply understands the concerns. What's happening at this factory is the kind of dissent rarely seen in China. But it appears from here that many in China have had enough. Chinese citizens are drawing comparisons with maskless fans attending the Football World Cup in Qatar and the Chinese citizens being trapped inside the country. The Chinese are frustrated. Many feel trapped. One Weibo user from Sichuan reacted to photographs from Qatar by asking, is this the same world as ours? You see, outside China, the world is learning to coexist with this virus. It is reopening, coming back on track. And if you look at the macro picture, you could say that the world is actually doing a good job. But China is not. The obsession with zero COVID has cost China's people their happiness. Its own economy is suffering, the domestic market, growth. Brokerage Nomura, for example, has revised China's GDP forecast for the fourth quarter to 2.4% year-on-year, over 2.8%. Full-year growth has also been cut from 2.9% to 2.8%. China's target was to grow by 5.5% this year. Clearly, that's not happening. and neither is a COVID-free China. Come 2023, China will head into the 4th year of the pandemic, and the world's second largest economy is still struggling to cope with COVID-19. And now, as the infections resurge, here's a question that the Chinese leadership must ask itself. Has China failed to fight COVID-19? If so, why? Is it because China decided to not import COVID-19 vaccines? Or because its own homemade vaccines have proven to be less effective? Or is it because China's vaccination levels are considerably low? Should China have fared better if it focused on vaccination over zero COVID? And these are questions that Beijing must try and answer. As for the rest of us, we must ask ourselves what the resurgence of the infections in China actually means for the world outside. Is this 2020 all over again? Should we also brace for lockdowns? And how long before COVID-19 cases rise in our countries as well? Our next story is from Ukraine. On Wednesday, it came under a punishing barrage of Russian strikes that have caused power outages across the country and piled more damage on its already battered power network. According to reports, Russia launched a total of 70 cruise missiles on Ukraine, 70. Out of this, over 51 missiles were shot down, along with 5 exploding drones. Where did these attacks unfold? All over the country. In the capital Kiev, the western city of Lviv, the southern town of Vilniansk, and the northeastern city of Kupiansk, just to name a few. What kind of damages did the strikes inflict? Besides damaging the critical infrastructure, they claimed the lives of over 10 people and injured over 36 others. Now, before I go any further, I must warn you, the visuals are graphic and disturbing. Look at these images. They are from Kiev. A host of buildings here are either up in flames or charred in ashes. Rescuers are trying to evacuate those who are trapped and haul vast sheets of iron off the roofs. The city's residents, meanwhile, are unable to get over the horror that they have witnessed. Listen to this account of a Kiev resident who almost lost her husband as a result of the strikes.
My husband asked where our documents were. I was very scared. I came running from work. I work nearby. Please excuse me. Thank God he's okay. More or less, he has not been injured. I very much hope everyone else will be okay, but I saw people being carried out of the building. Those who were injured, I do not know if they are alive, but I hope all will be okay.
Similar visuals have emerged from elsewhere. Look at these images now. They are from the southern part of Kiev. Most residential buildings there are engulfed in smoke as firefighters struggle to put the fires out. Their struggle is being amplified by the fact that the strikes have damaged the city's water supplies. In the south especially, most neighborhoods have been left without water.
What is there to hear? The rocket zoomed by, it was strong, the rocket flew all the way near the bridge, and here a blast was heard.
We heard a rocket strike and we saw smoke. The windows in my house blew out and then everyone ran to the subway to hide.
Why do they need to hit an industrial zone? There's nothing there. I work there in the same industrial zone. There are no soldiers. This is probably Russia's high-precision weapon.
And the water supply being disrupted is just one problem. The other and the bigger problem is power outage. You see, these strikes have left the entire Kiev region without electricity because the rockets hit a critical energy facility in Kiev. According to Energatom, Ukraine's state-owned nuclear operator, the strikes led to the country's last 3 fully functioning nuclear power stations to be disconnected from the power grid in a quote-unquote emergency protection measure. In other words, they were shut down to avoid any untoward incident. The company says they would resume the operations as soon as the power grid is normalized. Petro Kotin, the chief of Energoatom, says the power outage has also disconnected Ukraine's nuclear reactors from the power grid. He says this has happened for the first time in 40 years and has raised the prospects of a quote-unquote nuclear and radioactive catastrophe. Let me say that again, nuclear and radioactive catastrophe. The claims are not far-fetched. Just look at the scale of this power outage. It has engulfed not just Kiev, but also the city of Kharkiv, Lviv, along with parts of Chernihiv, Odessa. In a set of images that have emerged from Kiev, doctors can be seen performing a heart surgery despite the blackout. This happened at the Heart Institute of Kiev. The surgeons were performing a heart operation on a child when they ran out of power. But they did not stop their work and they finished the surgery successfully. In fact, not just Ukraine. Even neighboring Moldova reported a massive power outage. Immediately after the strikes unfolded, the country's president has gone on record to say that Russia's missile attack left Moldova in the dark. His claim also is not far-fetched. Look at these visuals now. They are from the capital, Chisinau. On Wednesday afternoon, the city went completely dark due to the strikes in Ukraine. How is that even possible, you wonder? Because Moldova relies on Ukraine's power grid. The country now fears that the power outage was just the beginning, that this war could soon spill over to Moldova in more ways than one. Listen in.
The spillover effects of the war against Ukraine are felt increasingly in the neighboring countries, including the Republic of Moldova. The Russian aggression against Ukraine has by far deeper implications on the Republic of Moldova's security and stability. The continued attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure have left Moldova again in the darkness following a similar incident on November 15. More than 50% of the country was left without electricity. There have been massive blackouts across the country. Water supply was also affected in the pumps were taken out of the order.
So how has Ukraine responded to this attack? What has its president said about it? Well, in a speech to the UN Security Council, he called the attack the Russian formula of terror, one that should see a firm reaction from the world. He called upon the body to deny Russia the right to vote on any decision concerning its actions. Let's now get you the most telling excerpts from that statement.
We are awaiting a very firm reaction of the world to today's Russian terror, response of our partners, response of our friends, not just observers, but a reaction from all those who really recognize the UN Charter. So today is just one day, but we have received 70 missiles. That's the Russian formula of terror. This is all against our energy infrastructure. We cannot be hostage to one international terrorist. Russia is doing everything to make an energy generator a more powerful tool than the UN Charter.
So will the UN Security Council listen to Ukraine's demands? Well, to be honest, it cannot. Russia is a UNSC member with veto powers. It cannot be denied the right to vote, not to the best of our knowledge. So what is the UNSC doing instead? What it does best: issue statements of condemnation. Here's one from the US ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield.
He is clearly weaponizing winter to inflict immense suffering on the Ukrainian people. He has decided that if he can't seize Ukraine by force, he will try to freeze the country into submission. If he gets his way, millions of Ukrainians will be left without power, water, and heat during these cold winter months.
Now, has Russia responded to these remarks? Yes, it has. Speaking at the UN Security Council, the Russian ambassador said that the damage to residential areas in Ukraine was caused by Ukraine's air defense systems itself. How exactly? Because of the fact that they are located in the center of cities and not on the outskirts. Those were the exact words spoken. You have to listen to this.
The damage to residential housing and victims among the peaceful population is indeed caused by the Ukrainian air defense systems, which are not located at the outskirts of the cities, but in the very center. As a result, debris from missiles that hit those places which Russia never targeted. So, for example, today, Ukrainian users posted photos on the internet of missiles that hit residential homes in Kiev. Turns out that those were American air defense missiles, which were supplied to Kiev.
So which side is telling us the truth? Is Russia targeting defense units only, or is it also attacking the civilian areas? Is Ukraine exaggerating the scale of these attacks, or is it actually helpless before the Russian assault? Like every question in this 9-month-long war, these two shall never fully be answered. And while the world is talking about Ukraine and that war, there's another war that's being waged simultaneously that not many people seem to be aware of, or not many people are talking about. Yesterday, the European Parliament website was attacked. It went offline. Also yesterday, India's premier medical institute and hospital was attacked. The server of AIIMS, or the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, was offline. Day-to-day activities were impacted. Doctors were not able to see reports of their patients. The bill desk was not able to generate bills. Even blood sample reports could not be viewed. There was an attack on India's health infrastructure, just like there was on Europe's democracy. And both were cases of cyber warfare. Reports say the attack on AIIMS is suspected to be a case of ransomware, meaning that the attackers wanted money in exchange of restoring the servers. The European Parliament, on the other hand, suspects the role of pro-Kremlin groups. Why? Because the attack followed a vote on Russia. Members of the European Parliament came together to vote on a resolution declaring Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism. Our story tonight is not just about what happened in France or New Delhi. It's about cyber warfare at large and the growing rate of these very attacks. They can affect us directly, compromise our data, hold our private information to ransom. Just like traditional warfare, cyber wars can also impact energy security, and they have in recent past. In May last year, American oil supplier Colonial Pipeline was attacked. The company had to halt all pipeline operations. There was fuel shortage at some airports. Flight schedules had to be changed. There was panic buying at the fuel stations. There was also fuel shortage in many American states, including Alabama, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. What's more, fuel prices had gone up. You see the point I'm trying to make here? A cyber attack can have similar impact as a traditional military attack. In February this year, multiple oil transport and storage companies were attacked. One of the companies was forced to scale down its operations. It is estimated the cyber attacks increased by 15.1% in 2021. In the first 6 months of this year alone, there were at least 63 cyber attacks on energy infrastructure alone. So the question is, what is the world doing about this? What is it doing to ensure cybersecurity? And since we were talking about the United States, you must know that only 50% of US businesses are estimated to have a cybersecurity plan in place. 32% of them have not updated their cybersecurity plan since the pandemic erupted. So where does that really leave us? In one word, it leaves us vulnerable, more vulnerable than we have ever been, because our world today has moved online. We completely depend on services online. The company that provides us water at home, gas to heat up our homes is vulnerable to being attacked or being hacked. It does not always require a missile to cut off heating from houses. You don't need to attack a country physically to affect its healthcare system. AIMS, for example, went completely digital in April this year. It decided to get rid of hard copies and pen and paper. The decision was taken in the beginning of the year. But was there a plan in place to safeguard the data online? And why just AIMS? Has the world woken up to the danger of cyber wars? And are we doing enough to deter them? These are questions world leaders and business leaders must think about as they discuss the war in Ukraine. And as I speak of war, how could I not speak of Pakistan? A country forever at war with itself, be it politically, financially, or societally. Pakistan is beset with internal troubles. And the latest one is over the country's army chief. There is a new one. Pakistan has appointed a new chief of army staff. His name is Lieutenant General Asim Munir. He will be the country's 17th army chief and replace Qamar Javed Bajwa, whose term will end next week. Now, like everything in Pakistan these days, this appointment also is riddled with controversy. I'll tell you how in just a bit. First, let's get to know this man. Who he is, what he stands for, and what changes, if any, could he bring to the Pakistan Army stand vis-a-vis India. I'll start with this statement by Pakistan's Defence Minister, Khwaja Asif.
The decision has been taken in accordance with the law. We hope the President will also not create any controversy regarding the appointment. They have been made as per the Constitution. Don't view it in political light. The PMO will soon release a detailed press release.
Lieutenant General Saeed Asim Munir is a 4-star rank general, currently serving as the Quartermaster General in the Pakistan Army. He is also currently the most senior officer among the list of generals that were in the race to the Army Chief's post. Previously, he commanded the XXX Corps in Gujranwala. This was from 2019 to 2021. He has also served as the 23rd Director General of the ISI. And he is a holder of the Sword of Honour, a significant honour in the Pakistan Armed Forces. Now, these are all the things that Pakistani media will tell you. His credentials, his achievements, his titles. But what they will not tell you is his track record, especially on India. You see, it was under Asim Munir's watch that the 2019 Pulwama attack unfolded in India. He became the Director General of the ISI in October 2018. The Pulwama attack took place in February 2019. Over the years, several security analysts have pointed out that Munir was among the decision makers involved in shaping Pakistan's response and policies at that time. His experience while serving as a general in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir came as a plus point for them. So you can only guess what his stance on India is going to be. Like every other army chief before him, he also is going to adopt the same approach. An approach marked by deceit and deception. In fact, some observers say Munir is going to be more hardline in his attitude towards India than Bajwa ever was. India, in any case, could not care less. Because before he even took charge, before he can even take charge, Munir will have to survive a political battle over his appointment. A battle between the ruling PMLN and the PTI. You see, Asim Munir has been personally handpicked by the country's Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif. He is said to have taken this decision after consultations with his brother, the PMLN Supremo, Nawaz Sharif. In fact, Munir himself is rather close to the Sharifs. Some analysts say, as the chief of the ISI, he crossed swords with Imran Khan at the behest of his friends in the PMLN. Not just that, he also apparently gathered evidence against Farah Khan, a close aide of Imran Khan's wife, who apparently received kickbacks and took bribes in return for favors from the PTI. So to put it simply, Asim Munir has not just been selected based on seniority, but also because of his closeness to the Sharif family. Does that mean he could spell trouble for Imran Khan? Well, on the face of it, Asim Munir's appointment as the army chief does sound like bad news for Imran Khan, given the shared history between the two. You see, it was during Imran Khan's tenure that Munir served as the DG of the ISI. But within a few months, Imran Khan picked Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid as his replacement. And this was mainly due to Munir's closeness to the Sharifs. This was 4 years ago. 4 years on, Imran Khan is out of power, but his party members are not, like Arif Alvi, the president of Pakistan, and it is the president who has the final say after all on appointments concerning the Pakistan army. And last we checked, Alvi had given his approval, but not without controversy. Have a look at this tweet. It's from the official handle of the PTI, Imran Khan's party. It says Imran Khan first consulted the president regarding Munir's appointment. Alvi even met Imran Khan at his Lahore residence regarding the same. The talks lasted for around 45 minutes and were followed by a statement by senior PTI leader Fawad Chaudhry. Watch this.
The Imran-Alvi meeting lasted for 45 minutes. They discussed the Chief of Army Staff appointment. President Alvi has departed for Islamabad. Details of the President's meeting with Imran Khan will be issued through a handout by the Presidency. All matters will be dealt with as per law and the Constitution.
ऐवान सदर इस ज़मन में एक ऑफिशियल हैंडआउट जारी करेगा.
Now, how do we perceive this? What was Imran Khan trying to prove through this meeting? Two things. One, that he still wields considerable power in Pakistani politics, mainly due to the president being from his party. And two, that he is not really against Munir's appointment as the army chief. The subsequent approval given by Pakistan's president is proof. This meeting was only aimed at showcasing that the PTI wants to mend its differences with the establishment. In other words, Imran Khan is trying to kill two birds with one stone. On one hand, he is trying to end his dispute with the army and uphold the appointment of Munir as the army chief. And on the other hand, he is trying to strike a possible wedge between the army and the ruling dispensation. Many expected Imran Khan to oppose the appointment of Munir. But the fact that he did not speaks a lot about what he has on mind. The upcoming general elections in the country, which Imran Khan wants to win at any cost, fixing his ties with the army sounds like a good beginning. And from that power play in Pakistan, let's now talk about a different game, the game of football. Well, politics has been making its presence felt on the football pitch as well. The Qatar World Cup has been making news for the big upsets, but also for the protests. Let me show you what happened over the last 24 hours. This picture on your screen was supposed to be a regular team photograph, but it became a lot more than that. Germany's players placed their hands over their mouths. This was during a team photo in front of dozens of photographers. This was ahead of their game against Japan at the Qatar World Cup. Why did they do this? To register their protest. Against what? To answer that, we need to rewind a bit. World soccer body FIFA had threatened 7 European teams with sanctions if they wore the rainbow-coloured One Love armband symbolizing diversity and tolerance. The move triggered a row, which has only been intensifying ever since. The captains of 7 European teams had planned to wear the bands, as part of an anti-discrimination campaign, but backed down after the threat of disciplinary action. And there have been angry reactions from politicians as well. Germany's Interior Minister, Nancy Faeser, criticized FIFA, calling the threat of sanctions unacceptable behavior. I'm quoting from what the minister said. In today's times, it is incomprehensible that FIFA does not want people to openly stand for tolerance and against discrimination. It does not fit in our times, and it is not appropriate towards people. Here's what the German Football Association statement said. We wanted to use our captain's armband to take a stand for values that we hold in the Germany national team, diversity and mutual respect. Together with other nations, we wanted our voice to be heard. It wasn't about making a political statement. Human rights are non-negotiable. That should be taken for granted, but it still is not the case. And that is why this message is so important to us. Denying us the armband is the same as denying us a voice. We stand by our position. And speaking of voice, that is where the symbolic covering of the mouth's gesture comes into the picture. Now for some more context here. Homosexuality is illegal in Qatar. That's the World Cup host country. In fact, its criminalization of same-sex relations has attracted criticism in the build-up to the tournament. And the West wants to make a point by showing pro-LGBTQ symbols to stand for diversity, inclusivity, protecting human rights. All that sounds great, noble, ideal. But here's the problem. It reeks of hypocrisy. While the West wants to once again showcase itself as the protector of human rights, the self-appointed global watchdog, the question I want to ask tonight is it asking for way too much? Let me reverse the situation for a minute. Would the West change its laws or its stance on an issue if another country wanted it to? Where has the West's conscience been when it comes to human rights in other parts of the world? Case in point being China. More specifically, China's Xinjiang region, which has been synonymous with the persecution of Uyghur Muslims. What has the West done about that? Apart from issuing statements, why not wear an armband to register its protests against China's human rights abuses? Or for that matter, Russia. Why do I bring up Russia here? Because of what happened there today. Just a few hours ago, Russia's parliament passed the third and final reading of a law that expands an existing ban on promoting LGBT propaganda, quote unquote, LGBT propaganda to children by banning it among people of all ages. And under the new law, any event or act regarded as an attempt to promote homosexuality, including online, in film, books, advertising, or in public, could incur a heavy fine. Where is the West protest against this? Where is that armband? So the point I'm making here is simple. Who wins the Qatar Football World Cup remains to be seen, but for now, Germany is playing a game of convenience. The West is winning the game of hypocrisy. Anwar Ibrahim is finally Malaysia's Prime Minister. After decades of waiting, after leading the opposition for years, Ibrahim has the top post at last. What does this mean for India? Where does the relationship between the two sides stand at this point? Our next report taking a closer look.
Saya Anwar bin Ibrahim setelah dilantik memegang jawatan seorang Perdana Menteri.
Anwar Ibrahim was sworn in as Malaysia's 10th Prime Minister. It is the realization of a decades-long dream. The dream of getting Malaysia's top job.
I am firstly grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After all these years and decades of trials and tribulations, He has granted that opportunity for us and for me in particular to lead this nation.
So why did it take this long for Ibrahim to become Prime Minister? Well, he was first denied the job in the 1990s. He was Deputy Prime Minister then, widely expected to succeed his mentor PM Mahathir Mohamad. But a disagreement with the Prime Minister saw him sacked. Then he was imprisoned, first on corruption charges, then for sodomy. But his conviction was overturned in 2004. Ibrahim emerged as the leader of Malaysia's opposition. He rallied against corruption of the ruling Barisan Nasional coalition. He was jailed again on sodomy charges in 2015. But in 2018, along with his former mentor, Mohamad, he dethroned the BN. He ended their rule of almost 6 decades. It seemed like Ibrahim's moment had finally arrived. He was pardoned and walked out of prison that year. He contested and became an MP. Mohammed was supposed to hand over power to Ibrahim after a while. Everything was coming together, but it seems destiny had other plans. Mohammed didn't hand over the reins. He resigned instead. Defections and Mohammed's resignation caused the coalition to collapse. That is what sparked the political instability in Malaysia. Instability which led to Saturday's election. The island nation has seen 4 different prime ministers in as many years. Ibrahim is the 4th. Finally, after all those decades of waiting, he's in charge. A strategic advisory firm put it this way.
With the appointment of Anwar Ibrahim as the 10th Prime Minister, I think this is a closure to the longest-running political crisis in Malaysia that started 24 years ago when he was sacked from the government by then Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad. Now, the sacking, I think, was a major turning point in Malaysian politics.
But it remains to be seen if the turmoil has ended, if Ibrahim will even serve the full term. So what does Ibrahim becoming Prime Minister mean for India? Relations between India and Malaysia have always been decent. However, they had dipped in 2019, when Mohammed was PM and had partnered with Ibrahim. Mohammed had raised the Kashmir issue at the UN General Assembly. New Delhi was not pleased. Relations between the nations were strained. India stopped palm oil imports from Malaysia. They were resumed in 2020, once Mohammed had stepped down. Ibrahim had visited India in 2019. He lamented communal violence in India. Ibrahim said he wanted a tolerant world, one based on pluralism and freedom of religion. Yet Malaysia continues to harbor the preacher Zakir Naik. Naik is wanted in India for making hate speeches. In 2019, Ibrahim refused to deport him without proof. Naik has Malaysian PR, and India has not forgotten about him. This year, the country celebrated 65 years of diplomatic relations. Bilateral trade is at about $20 billion, up 34% from last year. Despite the pandemic, there's no reason to believe things will change under Ibrahim, despite his complicated ties with Mahathir Mohamad.
Let's talk about Twitter now. Former US President Donald Trump's suspension on the platform has been lifted, and he is not the only one. Kanye West, Republican lawmaker Marjorie Taylor Greene, and many more could be on their way out of the Twitter jail. Just who is deciding this? Elon Musk has left it up to the Twitter users. As in Trump's case, a poll will be deciding. With the former American president, the people who wanted him back barely won, 51.8% to 48.2%. Almost half of the people wanted him to stay banned, out of around 15 million who voted. Musk claims 134 million people actually saw the poll, so about 90% of the people seeing the poll did not even vote. A voter turnout of some 11% is not exactly representative. But let's look at the ramifications here. Advertisers are fleeing the platform. This even as the American holiday season is about to start. According to this report, brands do not want to be associated with Elon Musk's Twitter because of content moderation issues. And why would they risk this? The report says hours after Musk took over, racist posts rose exponentially. Musk, however, says he has it under control, that hate speech impressions are down. He also says only 1,500 people were responsible, But it raises the question, if 1,500 people could cause hate speech to spike so much, what happens when all those who were suspended or banned come back? Musk's answer to deal with reach, not the content. He had posted this before Trump was reinstated. Look at his wordings. Negative hate tweets will be deboosted. So are we really here to believe that hate speech from a celebrity like Trump will not be found or detected? Kanye West was booted from the platform for anti-Semitism. His first tweet when he returned was this: "Shalom." How is that even okay? And what about lies, such as about elections being quote-unquote stolen, which could lead to violence? January 6, 2021 should serve as a reminder. After reinstating Trump, Musk tweeted this, meaning, "The voice of the people is the voice of God." And it's ironic that he used that. The phrase became popular in the 1700s in the UK, but its earlier attested usage was quite different. When the phrase was used in about 800 AD, it was a warning. The Emperor Charlemagne was given a message that roughly translates to, "Don't listen to those who say the voice of the people is the voice of God, since the righteousness of the crowd is always close to insanity." Make of that what you will. Musk's ownership of Twitter has raised fundamental questions. How much is a social media platform responsible for what is posted there? Should the common people, who have their own biases, really get a say? Is leaving moderation to experts undemocratic? Should advertisers be dictating content? We hope to have some answers soon. For now, Twitter could probably see a return of all the suspended accounts, controversial celebrities. Even India's Kangana Ranaut could be back. If nothing else, the Twitter turmoil is here to stay. Manchester United is one of the biggest football clubs in the world and is now up for sale. One would expect that the well-known business honchos on the planet would be in the mix to acquire the English giants. But instead, the name that is doing the rounds in the British media is David Beckham. Beckham is never far away from the headlines. His latest endeavour might raise a few eyebrows, but it seems like it's part of a larger trend. And what exactly is that trend? Let's find out over the next few minutes. Beckham will always be associated with Manchester United. The former England captain became a household name, in fact, when he was at Old Trafford. But that was in the first act of his career as a footballer. And since he hung up his boots, Beckham's resume has changed drastically. He has invested in various businesses, and most notably, he is the owner of MLS side Inter Miami, co-owner to be precise. Now, Beckham is a multi-millionaire, but owning a sports franchise is a different ball game altogether. Inter Miami is valued at around 600 million. How exactly did Beckham manage to even acquire that kind of money? Well, the simple answer is he hasn't. He's only a part of a consortium that owns the club. The majority stake is actually owned by the Mas brothers. But Beckham is naturally the face of this franchise, and it's a win-win for both Beckham and the team. Beckham gets to be a certified football club owner, while Inter Miami are seen as an extension of the powerful brand of David Beckham. And it's not just Beckham, interestingly. Several sports stars are going down this path. Basketball superstar LeBron James owns a minority stake in Liverpool since 2011. His long-term association with Nike also helped the sportswear brand become Liverpool's kit sponsors. The partnership with Liverpool has allowed James to pocket over $35 million. Formula One legend Lewis Hamilton is part of a group that owns NFL side Denver Broncos. Apart from the obvious monetary reasons, there is also a lot more at stake for these already great men. Their sporting credentials are unquestionable. In fact, James and Hamilton have not even finished their careers, but they are looking to create an even more enduring legacy. Their playing careers will be over in the next 3 or 4 years, but what after that? What next? These athletes are driven by that very question. Attaching themselves to other big establishments only enhances their personal brand and gives them a platform to legitimize, even diversify their investments. Their bank balance is hardly a problem. It's actually a no-brainer for them. And the other parties are only too happy to help. Michael Jordan is the ultimate success story for an athlete, both on and off the pitch. He is widely regarded as the greatest basketball player of all time, but has also created a bona fide business empire. Every kid in the world wants to own a pair of Jordan sneakers. His partnership with Nike started in 1984 when he was 21 years old, but laid the platform for him to become a billionaire. He is now the owner of NBA team, the Charlotte Hornets, and worth $1.7 billion. And that is not because of his 6 NBA titles. Athletes nowadays are not just satisfied with sporting success, they are looking for more than that, both in terms of money and global reach. And for better or worse, it is something we will have to get used to. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas, leaving you with Gravitas Images. Thanks very much for watching.
That's crazy.